My name is Jakub Polewka. I am one of the AmmonitOR developers, and today I wanted to present you something about our AmmonitOR. This is our server-based application that we use to monitor the data. So first of all, what is AmmonitOR? So, as I already said, it's a server-based online web application. It is used to aggregate and collect all the data that we have from our Meteor 40, Meteor 42, and Meteor laser devices. We also support some of the external devices, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. There is a very secure transmission of this data between our devices and the server itself. And it's basically a kind of project management tool in which you can supervise all your measurement devices, all your values, and all your Meteor masts. So it's basically used for campaign monitoring. As we can see here on this graph, we have our AmmonitOR that is described in here in this cloud on the right side. And we have our meteorological masts with the data logger on the left side. And you can see more or less how the communication between the two happen. And you can also see that it is using all sorts of secure data transmission between the logger and AmmonitOR. And every single step you're making is secure. It is using also HTTPS for your browsers when you open the page, so everything is secure. What is AmmonitOR good for? So it is good for wind, solar, for SCADA and power curve measurements. It is also good to investigate some kind of problems that could happen in cold climate, but also in warm climate when your sensors and devices are overheating, just as well as when there is really cold and you have -°C and maybe your wind vanes or anemometers are frozen. So we basically have a couple of blocks, couple of chunks that are important. First of all, as I mentioned, is campaign management. There are many tools that kind of make it easier for you to do. There are user permissions, there is documentation for every single step. You can also upload documents and photos. You have automatically generated reports. There is the monitoring section that allows you to check the data in the moment that you kind of want to see them. You open AmmonitOR and you check the plots, you check the graphs, you check the values. You can see the connection log of your device and so on. When it comes to data security, as I also mentioned, every single step is very secure. We also provide the two-factor authentication. So basically, you can make sure that even the logins are very secure. The devices are sending the data to AmmonitOR via SCP, so it's also a secure protocol. There is signing, there is also encryption that you can turn on. So everything is very safe, and also we're backing up our database, and there are backups on our server which basically make sure that no data get lost. And in the end, you can also export the data, but I'll get to all this information a little bit later. So AmmonitOR, what does it cost? That is one of the most important questions. And yeah, so mostly AmmonitOR is free of charge. All the functionalities in it are for you just for free. You can use the platform. And the only thing that we are charging for are third-party devices. So if you would want to use AmmonitOR with your Zephyr or your AQS remote sensors or Campbell loggers, then you will have to pay some kind of a monthly fee per month of data. Also, our old device, Meteor 32, is now also under this kind of like paid section because it is a very old device that is at this point, I think, over 15 years old, at least. The newest devices, so there is also some kind of fee that needs to be paid if you would want to import Meteor 32 devices into AmmonitOR. So the second section tells about, can I have a custom installation? So you say, okay, there is Ammonit server that you can use for free, but let's say you're not happy with that. You don't want the data to land somewhere on a server in Germany because of some kind of regulations in your country or so on. We also offer a custom server installation. You can install AmmonitOR on your own server somewhere. And AmmonitOR is in general also open source, so you can take a look at our code. You can play with it and theoretically install it on your server, but we provide also the full installation with all the packages and everything basically that needs to be set up and prepared in a way that AmmonitOR can work and run in a kind of safe environment. So we're providing the custom installation. You can talk to sales about that if you are interested in custom installation. Okay, section 3, some numbers, because we are engineers and we do like numbers. So we have around 2,800 devices that are connecting to AmmonitOR daily. They're sending the data to AmmonitOR. We receive around 3,100 files per day on our platform, and we are exporting around 2,000 different exports, different formats of files from AmmonitOR to our customers. So the data basically come into AmmonitOR, but they also go out of AmmonitOR at, as you can see, a big extent. Okay, section 4, secure data transmission. So we talked about it a little bit before. Here you can basically see that how the whole chain looks like, and you can see here an assurance that every single step that you're doing is secure. So as I said, the internet connection is encrypted via HTTPS. The data loggers are sending the data using the SCP. You can download the PDF reports, data files, and so on via end-to-end encrypted internet connection. Every single email that is being sent from AmmonitOR is signed, or at least maybe not an email is signed, but the files that we're sending, they are encrypted and they're signed. So that is kind of important. And also server upload, if you would decide to make it so from AmmonitOR using the safe method like FTPS or SFTP. That will also be done in a safe way. So basically at every single point, whenever you touch AmmonitOR, everything is encrypted, it is signed, it is secure. Okay, so campaign monitoring, we're coming more to these chunks that I was talking about before. First of all, we have a completeness calendar that you can see in here. And this basically shows you a calendar and tells you whether the data from a certain day came in a complete manner. Are the files filled with data as they should be? Or maybe not. You can see in here that, for instance, in the bottom in January, we had January 7th and 8th, there were some problems and the data weren't complete for some reason. So it is a good tool for you to kind of look into and estimate whether the files that are arriving are having all the data that you need. I also mentioned the connection log before, and that basically is a kind of graphical overview that you can have in a plot where you will see these kind of blocks like in here. That will tell you if your device has been online during the period that you set it up in to be online, basically. But it also kind of distinguishes that into different groups. So it tells you if it was online. It also tells you if it has transmitted files to AmmonitOR and different files as well. So you will see in here exactly the behavior of your device without having to kind of like check it manually or log yourself into the data logger user interface. We have a week's review. That is a page that you can open, and it has a bunch of default plots, and it will basically show you plots of all the evaluations from the last week, which will allow you just to quickly scroll down and look on the graphs and see if everything is fine. For instance, one of the important plots is like in here, it's a supply, the power supply. So in here you have a quick overview of your device voltage and current from the last week, and you can see if there are some kind of problems with batteries or something like that. So quick scroll through week's review should kind of keep you up to date. Another feature similar to week's review is a matrix, and it doesn't display graphs, it displays these colorful boxes that you can see in here. And they inform you about the completeness of certain evaluations. So I talked before about the completeness of the files, but there is another type of completeness that is completeness of evaluation. So every single sensor may have its own malfunctions or not provide enough counts, not enough measurement points. So in here you have it in more detail. You will see every single column, every single box showing you certain evaluation, and will show you whether it is complete or not. It will also show you some kind of values for the device voltage, for instance. That is an important parameter. You can see that maybe voltage is dropping and so on. It will show you the total completeness, but it will also show you filters, and I'm going to be talking about filters in a minute. But basically, you can filter the data and inform yourself whether there are some kind of problems, and that will be also visible in the matrix. So you will know maybe possibly the anemometer has frozen or something like that. So it is a second view that gives you an overview over a project, over your campaign, over your devices. Another important part are connection alarms. And these are the automated emails that can be sent to you, or XMPP messages, live data messages that you can receive if your devices have not connected. So you can set it up and say, okay, if my device misses a connection for a day and an hour, please inform me about it. Or if it's gonna miss it for 2 days and half an hour, please inform me that the logger is not connecting. Maybe there are some kind of problems with the device and you have to investigate that. There is also an option of sending you an email every single time the device connects, and that you can possibly set up, for instance, if you wanna log yourself in and change something. And then you can just turn it off. Let's say, okay, you know that you want to change some configuration, but you aren't sure because the device does not connect on the regular basis. The connection is not good. So every single time the device will connect, it will send you an email. Hey, I am online. You can log in and change something. Okay, there are also some kind of customized conditional triggers, and we call them filters, and that is something that I already also kind of informed about when I talked about the matrix. You can set up a different type of alarms that are more dependent on not on the logger connection, but they're dependent on the values that basically are in the CSV files that AmmonitOR collects. And you can say, okay, I will say if the wind speed is lower than 0.1 meters per second, that probably means the anemometer froze. And you can also combine it and say, okay, if it's below 0.1 meters per second and the temperature is below 0, that probably means that the anemometer froze. And please, if you see something like that in the CSV file, send me an email. And that is what is going to happen. That is also going to show up in the matrix view I mentioned before. So you can define very many and very different filters inside of AmmonitOR. I said about these values, but there are also ranges. You can say if something is in some kind of certain range, or if the values are missing completely, then it probably means that maybe the sensor broke. So there are many different types of filters that you can set up. Okay, when it comes to data inspection now, plots. We have many different plots in AmmonitOR. You could have seen also the week's review before. This is the automated mechanism that generates kind of like a week of plots for you. But we have very many different plots. One of them is shown in here. That's a dynamic plot. And basically you can plot whatever you want on the time axis. But you can zoom in and out. And in the bottom you can see that there is the whole what is it exactly? That is like a week of data, and we are zoomed in on a specific area on the upper plot that we are interested in investigating because we see something that we're interested in it. And you can zoom in, zoom out, and click on the points, and you will see exactly the values of the measurements. So here are kind of different type of plots. This is the height and wind and mean wind speed plot used for the remote devices, and you can see in here what is the wind speed of different heights. And you also have tables that are always below these plots that give you kind of summary of whatever is plotted, some kind of averages and values ranges. It all depends on the plot that you kind of use. As I said, there are plenty of plots, as you can see on the screenshot. There are the distribution, time variation, comparison. There are plots for soiling measurement, for power curve measurement, for turbulence analysis, and so on and so on. So I can't really imagine there is a plot that you would need that we don't have. We have also different kind of tools for the data inspection. We have some statistics over periods. For instance, in here, you can visualize yourself the kind of average wind speed over a certain month at the certain times of the day. That might be also an interesting information for you, at what time of the day is the wind highest on average. You obviously can plot the measurement values in the table, just like you receive it in the CSV file and you would open it in Excel. You don't have to do it. You can just open them in AmmonitOR and they'll be shown in these kind of boxes in the, I think, more understandable way than whatever the Excel would open. And you can click on the points and you have some more information about the configuration that is attached to a certain measurement and so on. So it is kind of like a better way of investigating in detail some kind of singular measurements that are maybe incorrect or you see something suspicious in them. Okay, project documentation, reports. So all these plots and tables that I mentioned before can be summarized in PDFs that you can download yourself, or you can send them to your email. So we provide different types of reports. They have different also intervals. So some of them are more for the solar measurements, some of them are more for wind measurement, there are some for power curve measurement. And there are different intervals. You can send a weekly report, or a report every 2 weeks, or a monthly report, and you will just get a nicely generated PDF that you can print out and maybe show to some investors or so on. That will summarize the state of your measurement campaign in the last week, in the last 2 weeks or month. You can also customize the reports. You can kind of take a template and you can pick which types and maybe sensors or fields or tables you're interested in that should be in your report. So these kind of automatically generated PDFs are customizable and they are nicely made using the libraries that are LaTeX. Okay, documentation. Another feature is journal. You have kind of information inside of your AmmonitOR project of every single instance of human interaction. So if somebody downloads the file or imports a file or makes an export or clicks around or adds user configuration of some sort in AmmonitOR, all this will be logged for you to have. You can download that in a file as well. So you have an overview of kind of who did what in a certain project. That is also useful because it gives you kind of the full picture of what was happening in the project. And if somebody maybe misconfigured something by accident or you're wondering why something happened, you can see when and who did that, and you can ask that person, why did you change slope and offset at a certain evaluation in AmmonitOR, for instance. There is something that mimics the logbook that you have in the Meteor 4042 devices. Basically, the logbooks are sent from Meteor 40 Logger, and they're also displayed as a calendar in AmmonitOR. So to see the logbook, you do not have to open the user interface of the device. You can just simply open this calendar view, and you can click around here and see all the logs from the device. They will tell you if there are some problems, if maybe there was an ungraceful shutdown because the battery was almost empty and the logger crashed, or something like that. That is all included in here, and you don't have to wait for your device to go online In AmmonitOR, all the data is available all the time. When the logger sends the information to AmmonitOR, at any certain moment you can open that. Not only when the device is online, like in the case of the user interface of Media 40, 42, 40 plus, and so on. We also have photos that you can upload. This is useful for your documentation because sometimes you're wondering why from a certain angle is the wind slower. Maybe there is some kind of obstacle, and maybe the people that set up the mast didn't tell you that, and now you see the values and you wonder what is going on. So in here you can kind of like upload the photos from that kind of point to every single part of world, from north to south to east to west, and you will see then, okay, this is how the surroundings of my meteorological mast looks like, and that is kind of important for future analysis of the data, maybe because there is maybe, I don't know, another mast, or maybe you use it for the power curve measurement. You will see when the wind turbine is standing and so on. So we also provide the option for you to upload the documents to the project. So basically, or any type of PDFs, images, anything that you would want to attach to your project, some kind of, let's say, installation kind of protocols. Let's say it might be also a calibration data for your sensors and so on. You want to have it all in one place. You can upload these files to AmmonitOR and they'll be available for you to download, and you will have a safe storage for them. Archiving. So we do all that, and in the end we want to archive all the data that we have in some way, and the most important feature is so-called data export. And you can set up an export in AmmonitOR that will send you or forward you basically the data that are received by AmmonitOR. And you can either choose to simply forward the original files that arrive from the data logger, but you can also say, oh, I don't want this format, I want something else. I want the files to be delivered to me in, let's say, Microsoft Excel format, in a CSV, let's say OpenOffice format, HTML. There are certain formats that are required for different countries, let's say Turkey and Brazil. They have their own specifications how the data files should look like. We also export in these formats. You can also mimic the TOA5 Campbell format. Let's say you have mostly Campbell loggers, but you also have couple Media 40 or 42 loggers or Media Laser. And you want in the end that all the files are kind of in this Campbell format. You can also export your files to that certain format. So as I said, there are many different methods and ways of configuring all that. You can sign this data, you can sign and encrypt these data that you receive via export. You can send them to your email, but you can also send them to, let's say, an SFTP server. You can use SCP, you can use all sorts of safe ways of communication to transmit your files. And also, all these formats of exports are completely customizable. You can say that you want to have the device name in every single column, or the serial, or what type of the date-time format you want. You want it to be European or American. You can also reorder the columns in the way that suits you. You can also say, okay, I'm interested in average and min, but I'm not interested in max. So basically anything you can imagine that makes the data export customizable is there. Also, when it comes to archiving, you can just see not just the data, but the CSV files themselves that arrived to AmmonitOR. There is a certain section that is called device files. And if you open that, you will see all the files from a certain month that arrived to AmmonitOR, and you will have them displayed in here. And you also have another archiving feature which shows you the device configurations overview. So there are two different things when it comes to configuration. There is the configuration section that comes in a Media 40 file as a footer, and that kind of relates more to the configuration that was used to generate this particular CSV file. And this is the configuration that AmmonitOR is working with. There is obviously also the full logger configuration file that you can download yourself from the logger itself. And this contains much more information about the device and so on. These files arrive in AmmonitOR and are stored. But what you see in the device configurations section in here are these reparsed footers of the CSV files from Media 40, which basically give you an overview what changed between the files since the last time I got the file. So maybe you updated a logger, or maybe you changed the slope and offset of a particular sensor. And that will all be displayed in here. It will inform you, hey, you know, the latest or earliest date of this configuration was that. It was valid between January 1st and then 13th of May, and you had 112 files that used this configuration, but after that it changed and it had something else configured. And if you click on it, you have exactly here the description of what was configured and which statistics were on, what was slope, what was an offset of certain evaluations. And you can also see kind of internal parameters like, let's say, how much storage is left, or what is basically the time zone of the device, and so on, some kind of details. Okay, new features in AmmonitOR, because I think most of the people that are watching that are at least vaguely familiar with AmmonitOR, try to click around, maybe use it even on a daily basis, but there are always new features that come to AmmonitOR as we are constantly developing the platform. First of all, there are custom reports that I mentioned before. All your reports are customizable, and in here you can see exactly how, and you can change the type of the report. And that will show you some kind of defaults in here, but you can restructure them. You can say, okay, first plot I want it to be wind direction, not wind speed. Or I'm not interested at all in humidity in the report. I want to remove it from the report, and so on. So all of that is basically completely customizable, and you can pick and select which columns you want and which plots and which tables and so on. So it is an important feature for kind of the automatic reports that you receive from AmmonitOR. We recently developed a soiling kit that we are selling as Ammonit, and we have a dedicated plots that are important for the soiling measurement, that are combining kind of the information about the irradiance and soiling ratio and so on. So this basically shows in a good way what is the status of the soiling measurement. That is mostly used for solar measurement, obviously. Another feature is that you can copy filters between the projects. You maybe have one project, but you say, okay, I defined here all the filters that I want to use throughout my different projects, and you can click on copy, and you can copy them to your new device, and they will mimic the behavior from that one project to another. So it is kind of convenience for you that you don't have to every single time manually click around and pick all the evaluations and the values. That will be useful filters. Yes, we mentioned the two-factor authentication login. That is also new. You need to enable that in your user settings. And when you do that, you will have to have kind of application that supports the two-factor authentication. We're not sending SMS messages. You need to have your mobile phone with some kind of 2FA application where you can scan first the QR code and register everything. And in the end, the AmmonitOR, except of your password, will also ask you for these rotating kind of security keys that will appear in that application. So it's really good because it improves the security for your login, because you know a lot of people sometimes reuse the passwords and so on. That is not really good in terms of security. You shouldn't do that. But basically, if you have the 2FA authentication method turned on, you are safe. You still need to give this one-time code that is displayed on your mobile phone. Okay, a new feature is now there because there was, or there will be, I'm not sure what exactly the schedule of these talks are, but Anna presented a completely new thing that is now part of the Media 42 software on the logger itself. And in there, basically what you have is you can give a certain conditions, like in the filters in AmmonitOR, but you do that in data logger, and you make some things that are being triggered and so on. And these triggers and these messages that you receive from logic controller, you can receive in our live data user interface, Ammonit Live. And in there you have the messages from the logic controller, except of your live data that will be arriving to that platform as well. But we have now another thing, which is AmmonitOR is connected to Ammonit Live as well. So AmmonitOR will send filters, and it will send connection alarms to Ammonit Live as well, if you configure it, obviously, to do so. So if you are using our kind of like live data suite that is, you know, Ammonit Live, and configure that in the logger, and you're using all these features, while you are in Ammonit Live, you can also receive filters and alarms from AmmonitOR. Okay, we have another features that are being added to our API. That is more for our kind of hacking community, let's say. If some of you are using our API, which is that you implement kind of in your software some kind of requests that you give to AmmonitOR. Let's say you want to download data, but you don't want to download them yourself. You want your scripts to do things. You have some kind of software that should kind of like go to AmmonitOR, grab the files and download them. You can use our API. We have it since a while, but every now and then a new options are available in our API, and we have now also the connection log. We have the data exports are available via API, and some kind of project and device metadata. You can, since forever, also download the files themselves. But now, as I mentioned, data exports are there as well, so you can also download maybe an Excel file or so on. Depends on what you need. Okay, section 10, support and feature requests. So we always say we have the dynamic development philosophy, so we do a lot of things. We try to get the new versions out. AmmonitOR is constantly in development. So we also respond pretty quick to support, usually. I mean, we tried our best to support as quick as we can, and we try to resolve all the problems and issues that might occur with AmmonitOR usage. We also develop what you need. So if you have certain request or a need, please tell us, and we'll kind of, you know, take a look at our schedule and decide kind of the priorities. But all these features, at some point, they will be implemented. And obviously, the more people come and request something, and then we see, oh, there are many people requesting some certain feature, and then we say, okay, this is important because so many customers asked us to do that certain thing, and then we'll be doing that. So always any kind of opinions, any kind of ideas are very welcomed to how to develop AmmonitOR further. So please tell us all that. And yeah, we're working on AmmonitOR, and every now and then there is a new release, a new version that has something new. So use it and check always the release notes and read them and see what's new in AmmonitOR that just arrived. Okay, so I wanted to thank you so much for the attention. I hope the AmmonitOR is now kind of a bit clearer what it is, what it does, and maybe you learned something, some new ideas and features, how you could use that platform. And obviously we are waiting for your feedback and feature ideas. You can always write us an email. Thank you very much.